I'm Virginia Kanzioka. I am an artist and I like to paint. I've had a love of jewelry for a very long time. It actually started with Barbie jewelry. I had a friend, my mother's friend, who would save me her old costume jewelry, and I would take some of it apart and make long dangly earrings for Barbie. So, and probably necklaces or bracelets. So, but since I started painting as a watercolorist, I started making jewelry out of 300-pound watercolor paper. And so that's how I got started with this, probably a couple of decades ago already. So usually most of my pieces are made using patterns. I cut out patterns from any kind of scraps of leftover cardboard from things, and I trace them down onto watercolor paper. So I have a piece traced down here, and I would just add the other piece and trace it down here. Now this particular piece has punches out of it, triangular punches, so I have a triangular paper punch that can make those punches. And I save those punches because they will be used later. When I'm planning a piece, I usually will trace down the shapes and figure out how I want to, what kind of shapes I want to add to it to enhance it. I don't just paint it a solid color. So once I've picked one, which I've picked this one for this particular pin, I will do color studies. Just color studies on scraps of paper so that I could pick something, see if I like it. So I actually make swatches of colors that I have. I have a box of metallic swatches and I have a box of non-metallic swatches, and that helps me to pick a color palette for each piece. So then after I've cut out the pieces, I will draw my design on the pieces in pencil, and here's where I've punched out the holes. What happens with this piece is I like to shape it because I want it to be a little more dimensional when I glue it onto the base piece so that it makes the pin more dimensional. So what I'll do is I'll take the little punches and glue them on to help raise it up off the surface. But I might also bend the corners just to help with the dimensionality. And so here's a piece that I've done. I've glued the pieces on, and that's the front. So when I put it on top of the base piece, you can see that it's raised. So then I will paint the back because I'm going to put a backing piece on before I glue the pin. When I glue the pin back on, the backing piece will be painted the same color, and once it's got the pin back in there and I glue it on, you won't see any white. So that's why I paint across where the pin back normally goes. The backing pieces, I use the main piece of the pin and I cut it out from a lighter weight of watercolor paper. I usually use about 140 pound for that because it just needs to finish off the back and make it look nicer. So this is actually a finished pin ready to be coated. I coat them with 10 coats of a clear acrylic varnish to give them a nice finish, make them sturdier and protect them. And so this is the finished piece with the pin back on, and it's signed. This is a finished piece that's been coated, and because you can't go wrong with sparkly stuff, I've put a Swarovski crystal in the center.